By some estimates, the number of cases of Ebola in an area can double in
A matter of weeks.
2 weeks. So with that being known, with the case rate now being estimated at 10,000 cases a week
In Africa.
what does it take to slow the spread? How do you put this fire out?
I think that there are enormous challenges, as we've discussed earlier, one of which is the contact tracing. How in the world do you find out who everybody has been with in that type of a population and when the numbers are that large? If the genie's out of the bottle, they may not be able to get the genie back in the bottle. It is an enormous challenge, whether it's epidemiologic and contact tracing, or families, and somehow they have to know. But all the while, the behaviors that may have initiated index cases of Ebola may be continuing.
The bats
The
are out
consumption
there.
of the bushmeat, the
bushmeat,
natural
the
reservoir,
dogs.
and the bats, and that sort of thing. And the world's a smaller place, and there is crowding, there is poverty, there's lack of sanitation and running water, and our efforts there are noble. Whether the military's suited or not for this is a subject to debate. They need modern hospital facilities at the very least. The treatment of this illness is supportive. They need IV fluids and oxygen. It can't be that hard to get that there.
The will is what's important. The will.
There has to be a will.
Now, there are 5 known strains of Ebola virus. At least 4 of those, I believe, are pathogenic in humans, one of which probably not. The Philippine strain, probably not so much. But because there are these different strains, does that complicate our efforts to make a vaccine and to control the epidemics?
Well, that's one thing that it does share with other viral illnesses. There's a new strain of influenza every year, or whether you're talking about Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome or the SARS virus, things of that nature. There are always different species. They might share common antigens. This is a matter of time and intensive investigation. So one vaccine might work for all of them, or may not work at all.
I know at least one of the victims was asked whether this person was going to go back to Africa now that this person has recovered, and this person is considering it, presuming she might be immune at least to the strain where she was working.
It's logical. She's survived it. She undoubtedly has neutralizing antibodies, and that's a personal matter of someone wanting to go back and help their fellow man. That's rather noble as well. Others might not call it that.
What do we know from other viral outbreaks, epidemics, that we might apply to Ebola? Is it simply contact tracing? Is there more that we can glean, going all the way back perhaps to the influenza pandemic?
That's a hard one.
That's
I'm not sure I have a good answer for that. Every day there's another virus for people to be scared of. And, we briefly heard about enterovirus D68, and it disappeared from the news because Ebola is obviously more tantalizing for people, or what, I don't know. But people have had a fascination for quite some time, and it's increased throughout my active life and practice. There's a fascination with microbes at every level. And we're in an age in which people go read things on the internet. In the dark ages, when I went to school at least, we read textbooks.
When you look at epidemics, when epidemiologists look at the patterns of these things, they're often looking for telltale signs of where it starts, where it goes, where it's going to go next. Have you seen any literature, any supposition about where the next hotspot's going to be?
I have not personally, and I think that's a matter of supposition. But the more that people are allowed out of that area, the more certain it is for other cases to start showing up. Spain had a case.
Right.
Many other European nations have banned flights from Western Africa. I could certainly understand that prevention is the best way to go about this. The patients in the area, before there are hundreds of thousands of cases, something has to be done there. But to just say anybody can travel anywhere they want, coming from there, might put a lot more people at risk.
Now, at some point, there comes a time in an epidemic where it reaches, for lack of a better word, critical mass, and you can't get at it. Are we there yet in Africa? Can this thing be stopped? And what would that critical mass be, in your opinion?
Well, not being trained in epidemiology, what I could tell you is only from experience in other ways. And you can't just go quarantining an entire nation. They would have to wall off an entire country. It's not possible. Not only is it not possible, it's not practical. And they wouldn't stand for it. You know, people don't like confinement, as I understand it. But there may be no alternative.
I mean,
hopefully it may run its course, but so far there's no signs of that.
it's growing. 10,000 a week. It's growing. It leads you to wonder, at what point does it just take off?
It may already have done so. Given the long incubation period, I'm most interested in the contacts of Mr. Duncan in the Dallas area. Remember, he was sent home from an emergency department, which is the subject of another show altogether. Nevertheless, I want to know the health status of those closest contacts of his.
Well,
And
they're being
furthermore-
monitored as far as we know, right?
Right, I don't know if we're at the 21 days yet.
I don't think we are, not as we record this today.
And I would furthermore like to know that the nurses are doing well without treatment, that they're not getting sicker perhaps. Those are things I would like to know.